show here. Okay, this is a spinner component. Spinner which is used to present the list of configured values in a drop down menu. Which is used to present the list of configured values in a drop down menu. You cannot give your own input. You cannot give whatever the options are available. What are the options are available here? Only you can select that option. Only you can select. That is a spinner component. Let me bring my headset. Okay. Yeah, is it audible now? Is it audible? Okay. So spinner which is used to present the list of configured values in a drop down menu. Okay. So the syntax for this spinner component is which is used to present the list of configured values in a drop down menu. In XML file, we had to create a UI component called spinner is a UI component. So we'll configure few properties. We'll configure like ID, and the remaining all other properties are same like width, height, and all other parameters are what same. Okay. In the XML, just we create UI component called what spinner component we created in the XML. In the XML file, we'll create a spinner component. We'll create, and in Java code, we'll get that XML configured spinner component. We'll get into Java code. Spinner, there is a method called find view by id is a method. Find view by id. Specify the id of the spinner component r.id.sp1. First, in XML file, we create a spinner component. We'll create in the XML file, and next we are getting the spinner component. We are getting into what? Into Java code. We are getting. Okay. Next, here also same like autocomplete text view. Actually, we discussed right. Same like autocomplete text view for presenting the values. For presenting the values, first configure the values. Same like autocomplete text view for presenting the values. Configure the values in XML or Java. Configure the values either in XML file or in a Java file. We see now yesterday already we seen what is XML configuration and Java configuration. Okay, so for presenting the values, we had to configure the values either in XML file we had to configure or in Java we had to configure the values. Okay. For example, if the values are configured in XML, if the values are configured in XML, if the values are configured in XML for presenting the values, for presenting the values, use of or set the following attribute. Set the following attribute. Set the following attribute to the spinner component. Same like autocomplete text view for spinner also, we can set the values you can set to the spinner. I mean, If the values are configured in XML file, directly you can use this attribute. You can use attribute is nothing but Android colon entries is the attribute. Android colon entries is equals to at array slash specify the array name here. Android colon entries is equals to at array slash specify the array name. What is the array name? Okay. So now we'll see up to this one. We'll create on sample project. We'll create and we'll configure the values in the XML file and we'll try to set the values to the spinner component. We'll try to set the values by using XML. Okay. Let's create a project. Android Studio. Let's create a project. Start a new Android Studio project. Let's start a new Android Studio project. Specify the project name. Let's take my project name is, for example, I give me SP test is a project name I'm specifying. What is the project name? SP test is a project name I'm specifying. Next. So here take an empty activity and finish. It's creating a project. Okay, project is created. First in the XML file, we'll create a spinner component. We'll create first. So I'm taking the main UI group as linear layout. I'm taking. Now, slowly to understand why I'm taking the linear layout. Let's take linear layout. We don't require this tools attribute width and height, and we'll remove all the attributes. Will remove. And for linear layout, additionally, we'll specify an attribute called what? Vertical is the orientation for this linear layout. Vertical is the orientation for this linear layout. Now in this linear layout, inside this linear layout, so first we'll create one text view component. We'll create inside this linear layout. First we'll create what? One text view component we'll create. Width is match parent, occupy the entire screen, and height I'm specifying as what? Wrap content is height I specify. And what is the text you want to display? Let's specify the text here. I want to display this text. I want to display enter text. Enter text. I want to display text. I want to display. And you can define the text size attribute. You can specify text size. I specified 30 SP specified or 25 SP is a text size. So we created a text view component. We created text style specified. So in design, just we create one text view component we created in linear layout. In linear layout is a main UI group we taken, and we created what? One text view component we created inside the linear layout, and below of that We'll create what? A spinner component will create. Width is match parent, height is wrap content I specified. Width is match parent and height is what? Wrap content. Let's configure the ID for this one. SP1 is the ID I configured. Okay. So we created what? A spinner component we created. We created a spinner component we created. Now for this spinner, on top of this spinner component, we had to present some values we had to present. We had to present what? Some values we had to present. But for presenting the values, first we had to configure the values we had to configure, either in XML or in Java. Let's take the first approach, XML. In resource, you can find a folder called values is a folder name. In resource folder, you can find a folder called what? Values is a folder. In this values folder, you can find a XML file called strings.xml is XML file. In this XML file, first we had to configure the values. Whatever the values you want to present in the drop-down menu, we had to configure the values we had to configure here. In this strings.xml file, let's create a string array. Let's create a string array. Give a name for this array. For example, I want to present the list of countries I want to present here. I created a string array I created a string array and I gave the name for this string array. What is the array name? Countries is the array name. What is the name I configured? Countries is the name I configured here. Now inside this string array, let's configure the values. Okay, inside this string array, let's configure the values. Inside the string array, let's configure the values using item by item tag. Let's configure the values by using item by item tag. Will configure the values will configure by using item by item tag. Just 1 second. Okay, inside this string array, we'll configure the values. Will configure item by item tag. Okay, in this item by item tag, let's configure the values here. For example, inside this item by item tag, let's configure the values here. For example, just for demonstration, I'm configuring few values. I'm configuring. Just for demonstration, I'm configuring few values. I'm configuring here. Just for demonstration. So we configured few values we configured here. In the XML file, we configured the values we configured by using string array tag. Now here, if the values are configured in XML, if the values are configured in XML file for presenting the data, Android is providing an attribute called entries is the attribute. There is an attribute called Android colon entries is the attribute. Specify your attribute name at array slash specify the array name here. What is the array name we configured in the XML file? Countries is the array name we configured. In XML file, we created a spinner component we created in the XML file, and we are presenting that values to the spinner component just by setting this attribute. What is the attribute name? Android colon entries is the attribute. Specify the array name here. Whatever the array name is specified in the strings.xml, this array name we specified, right? This array name we have to specify in the entries attribute. At array slash specify the array name, whatever the name you configured. Okay, now we'll run the application. Let's see that is displaying the values or not. Let's test the application. Run the application. I'm installing the application in Samsung device. It is installing the app. See, the app is installed. Okay, enter text. So basically, once if you select this one, you'll get a drop down and you'll get, see, we got the list of country names, whatever we configured in the strings.xml file. Okay. So once if you select this one, it's a spinner component. It's a spinner component. Once if you select this spinner, you'll get a drop down menu. You'll get here. It is showing the list of configured values. It is showing here. It is showing what? The list of configured. I mean, we are showing the list of configured values in a drop down menu. We are showing here. Okay. So this spinner component is having an event called item selected event. Meaning, for example, I'm going to select an item. I'm going to select here either China or some item. I'm going to select in this spinner component. My requirement is whatever the item I selected, so that event I want to get. Okay, we'll see that one. Before that, we seen only the XML configuration. We seen the values are configured in XML file. If the values are configured in XML file, we can set the values to the spinner component by setting an attribute called what? Entries is the attribute. By setting this entries attribute, directly we can set the values we can set. For example, if the values are configured in Java, if the values are configured in Java, if the values are configured in Java, for presenting the values, if the values are configured in Java, if the values are configured in Java, for presenting the values, we had to create an adapter. We had to create. For presenting the values, we had to create an adapter. We had to create. So in our last class, we already discussed that one. How to create the adapter. In case of XML configuration, set the values using the entries attribute. In case of Java configuration, we had to set the values by setting an adapter. Okay. So now we'll see how to create the adapter. Let's create the object for array adapter. Create the object for what? Array adapter. You have to specify what type of data you are presenting. Yesterday we already discussed this adapter creation concept, but once again I'm recalling. Array adapter. Adapter is equals to new array adapter. So here you have to specify what type of data you are presenting. String. So this array adapter constructor, we had to take three parameters we had to send as input for this constructor. First thing is a context object. First thing is a context object, and second parameter is nothing but XML file, and third parameter is a list of configured values. These three parameters we have to send to this array adapter object. First thing is a context, second thing is a XML file in which format you want to present the data, and the third parameter is a list of configured values. And third parameter is the list of configured values. Now we have to set this adapter to the spinner component. The spinner component we have to get into Java code. Spinner component, or there is a method called set adapter is a method. Specify the adapter object. Spinner component dot set adapter of, specify the adapter object. We had to set the adapter object. We had to specify the spinner component. We had to set. Okay, this is Java configuration. If the values are configured in Java, we had to create an adapter. We had to create, and we had to set that adapter. We had to set to the spinner component. We had to set. Okay, let's see here. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm removing this XML configuration. I'm removing. The advantage of configuring the values in XML is nothing but the advantage of configuring the values in XML file is directly we can set Directly we can set the values to the spinner component by using the entries attribute. The values are configured in XML. Directly we can set the values to the UI component by using the entries attribute. Okay. For example, if the values are configured in Java, imagine there is no XML configuration. The values are configured in what? In Java, the values are configured. Okay. So here we'll configure some values. We'll configure in Java by using a string array. Here I'm configuring few values. I'm configuring. Okay, here I configured some values I configured in the string array. And string array I configured some values I configured in the string array. Okay. Now for presenting the values, if the values are configured in Java, we configured the values we configured in Java. For presenting the values, we had to create what? An array adapter we had to create. Let's create the object for array adapter. Create the object for what? Array adapter. Now in this array adapter, we had to specify what type of data we are presenting. In this array adapter, we had to specify what type of data we are presenting. We are presenting what? String type of data we are presenting. Adapter is equals to new array adapter. Array adapter is equals to what? New array adapter, and we are presenting a string type of data we are presenting. That's why we specified the generic type we specified, string we specified. Okay. How many parameters you have to specify here? Three parameters you have to specify. First thing is a context. Wherever you find a statement called context, you can use a method called getApplicationContext method you can use. Or if you are in the activity class, if you are in activity class, simply you can specify this, you can specify. If you are in an activity class, simply you can specify main activity dot this. So you'll get the current class activity object you'll get. I'll repeat once again. Wherever you find a statement called context, simply use your class object, the main activity dot this. And second parameter is nothing but in which style you want to present the drop down menu. I told you right yesterday. Uh, you'll get a drop down menu. You'll get in which format you want to present this drop down menu. I mean, what is the background color for this? What is the text color for this? What is the text style? You want what is a you want to display only the text view component or text view along with the radio button, text view along with the checkbox. Basically, this individual user interface, we are going to define the individual user interface. We are going to define in XML file. In which format you want to present the individual user interface, we are going to specify that one in a XML file. Will specify that one in which format you want to present the individual UI. Okay, let's create an XML file for this. Let's create an XML file, or otherwise you can take the built-in XML files. You can take already Android is providing some built-in XML files. We can take the built-in XML files. You can take here. If you want to get that built-in XML files, if you want to get, just use this statement: Android dot r dot layout dot Android dot r dot layout dot. Specify the XML file name here. All these are the XML files. You can take any XML file. You can select here. Simple spinner item. So you can find a lot of XML files you can find here. These are all the Android built-in XML files. These are all what? Android built-in XML files. I'm taking this XML file. I'm taking simple spinner drop-down item. Simple spinner drop-down item is a XML file name I selected here. And the third parameter is nothing but the list of configured values. Third parameter is the list of configured values. Okay, we created programmatically we configured the values we configured through Java. We configured the values. If the values are programmatically, I configured the values I configured programmatically. Okay, by using string array, I configured the values programmatically. Okay, next. So we are setting that values here. Just give me a minute. So programmatically we configured some values, we configured programmatically by using a string array, and so we are setting the string array, we are setting to the array adapter. Now set this array adapter object. Now set this array adapter object to the spinner component, will set the values. We'll set this array adapter, will set to the spinner component, will set. Okay, in the XML file first we configure a spinner, we configure in XML. Get the spinner component into Java code first. Get the spinner component into what? Into Java code. Find db by id r.id dot spinner component. XML file we configured a spinner, we configured in the XML file. Next we got the spinner component into Java code. Now what is the method name? Spinner dot set adapter is a method. Set this adapter to the spinner component. Okay, so we configured the values, we configured in Java, we configured the values. For Java configuration, we had to, for presenting the values, we had to create an adapter, we had to create, and we create adapter, we created, and we are setting that adapter to the spinner component, we are setting. XML means very simple, just use this attribute, entries attribute, directly set the values. Java configuration means, so we had to configure the values, we had to configure, and we create adapter, we created, and we are setting that adapter, we are setting to the spinner component, we are setting. Okay, let's run the application now. Run the application. There is some error. What is the ID we define for the spinner component? SP1 is ID we define, but SP1 is ID we define. Let's run the application now. Okay, app is installed, and these are the Java configured values. We configured these values, we configured through Java, we configured. There is any differentiation, XML configuration, Java configuration. Yesterday we discussed, right, that internationalization support, if you want to provide in a multiple languages, if you want to provide the support, that is one thing. And second thing is static values will configure in XML. Dynamic values will configure through Java, will configure the dynamic values. Okay. Okay, we see in the XML configuration and Java configuration. XML means simple, use the entries attribute. We don't require this creating an adapter, setting the adapter, configuring a click event. We don't require all these things, is not required uh, in case of what? XML configuration. Just use the set entries attribute. In case of Java configuration, configure the values, set an adapter, configure an adapter, set the adapter to the spinner component. Okay. Now here, this spinner is having an event called item selected event. Spinner is having an event called item selected event, meaning we create a spinner component we created, right? So user is going to select the spinner component, user is going to select. I want to know which item the user is selected in this drop down menu. Whether he selected Sri Lanka is selected or China he selected, or which item the user is selected. I want to get the information I want to get. Which item the user is selected. Okay. This spinner is having an event called item selected event. Let's see here. Spinner is having same like button click event. Button is having what kind of event? Click event. We are going to click a button, we are going to click. Same in that way. Spinner is having item selected event. We are going to select an item, we are going to select in the spinner. Spinner is having item selected event. To get this event, configure the following listener. To get this event, configure the following listener. Spinner is having item selected event. To get this event, configure the following listener we have to configure. That is spinner dot spinner object dot. There is a method called set on item selected listener. We have to configure this listener. We have to configure called set on item selected listener is the method. Spinner object dot set on item selected listener is a method. On item selected listener is a method. For this method, item selected listener method, we had to specify the object will create by using new operator, right? We had to specify the object of on item selected listener. We had to specify the object. Spinner dot set on item selected listener. In this on item selected listener, we had to specify the object of on item selected listener class object. We had to specify. Set on item selected listener. We had to specify the object of. We had to specify the object of on item selected listener class object. We had to specify. Okay. In this on item selected listener, it contains two methods. This on item selected listener contains two methods. One is public void on item selected is one thing. One is on item selected is one method. On item selected is one method, and one more thing is public void do nothing selected is another one. Do nothing selected is another method. These are the two methods. Spinner dot set on item selected listener. Spinner dot set on item selected listener. In this on item selected listener, we had to specify the object of on item selected listener class object. Will specify. Will specify what? On item selected listener class object we have to specify, which contains two methods. One is on item selected is one method, and another thing is do nothing selected is another method. On item selected is one method, another method is what? Do nothing selected is another method. Whenever user select a particular menu item, whenever user select a particular item, it is going to call this on item selected is going to call. Whenever user select a particular item, it is going to call this on item selected method is going to call. It's going to call what? On item selected method is going to call. Okay. Now here, let's write the logic. Whatever the logic you wants to perform, when user select that particular item, let's write the logic in this on item selected method. Okay. So here, we had to give the information, right? Which item the user is selected, that information we had to give. So one of the option is nothing but toast. One of the option is what? Toast. Okay, well, let's see what exactly toast. So toast is one of the notification method in Android. Toast is one of the notification method. Toast is one of the notification method in Android, which is used to display text on the screen for a few seconds. Okay, one of the notification method in Android is what? Toast. Toast is one of the notification method in Android, which is used to display text on the screen for a few seconds. Meaning after that automatically it will dismiss. If you want to show any message, if you want to show on the screen for a few seconds, then we use this toast. The syntax of this toast is nothing but toast.makeText is a method. Toast.makeText is a method. Toast.makeText is a method. First parameter we had to specify the context we had to specify. First parameter we had to specify what? Context we had to specify in the first parameter. Second parameter we had to specify the message we had to specify in the second parameter. And third parameter we had to specify the duration. And finally we had to call show method we had to call. This is a syntax. Toast.makeText is a method. First parameter is a context. Second parameter is what? Message. Third parameter is duration. And finally we had to call what? Show method we had to call finally. Okay. So here for this spinner component, additionally we had to configure an event we had to configure called item selected listener. We had to configure this listener we had to configure. spinner dot set on item selected listener. Spinner object dot what is the method name? On item selected listener is the method. In this on item selected listener method, we had to specify the object of spinner dot set on item selected listener. Spinner dot set on item selected listener. So for this on item selected listener method, inside this on item selected listener, we had to specify the object of on item selected listener. Spinner dot set on item selected listener. In this on item selected listener, we had to specify the object of on item selected listener class object. We had to specify set on item selected listener. We had to specify the object of what on item selected listener class object. We had to specify. See, automatically we'll get these methods. We'll get just it's a method spinner dot set on item selected listener. Okay, just input parameter for this one is object of item selected listener. So if we specify new operator on item, automatically you'll get the two methods you'll get. It contains two methods. One is on item selected is one method, and do nothing selected is another method. On item selected and do nothing selected. So when user select a particular item, it is going to call this on item selected method is going to call. When user select a particular menu item, drop down item, it is going to call on item selected. So what are the logic you wants to perform? When user select this particular item, write the logic in this on item selected method. What are the logic you wants to perform? When the user select that particular item, write the logic in this on item selected method. See here, we'll discuss more about these parameters. What are the parameters? But here in our application, we required this position. We required what? This position means which item the user is selected. Okay. I want to display a toast message. I want to display here toast, meaning which item the user is selected. When user select a particular item, it's going to call this on item selected method is going to call the selected item we are displaying in a toast. Toast dot make text. Specify your activity class object. Main activity dot this. Main activity what? This. And second parameter is the which item the user is selected. That item will specify. Spinner one dot. There is a method called get titlism. Selected item is a method. Spinner object dot. There is a method called get selected item is a method. Get selected item is a method. So that we'll get the selected item. We'll get which item the user is selected. See, what is the return type of this method? Return type of this get selected item. Return type of this get selected item is nothing but object. Object is a return type. Object is a return type of this get selected item method. But we require in a string format we require. So that's why we'll call dot toString we'll call. Toast dot. First parameter is a context. Second parameter, what is the message you want to display? Which item the user is selected in a drop-down menu. That item I want to display in a toast message. The last thing is nothing but duration. Length underscore long dot. So toast dot make text. First one is a context. Second parameter is of which item the user is selected. That selected item we are displaying in a toast we are displaying. And finally length underscore long dot show. Okay. So we'll run the application. Will run. Let's see. Let's run the app. See, by default, we got first item is selected Sri Lanka. Okay. Now, if you select any particular item here, I selected China. I selected. We got a toast message. So basically, this type of message here we are getting some message we are getting right. This is called as a toast message. This is called as what? It's a toast message. For example, if we select this Afghanistan, if we select, okay. So this kind of message is called as what? A toast message. One of the notification method in Android, which is used to display text on the screen for few seconds. After that, automatically it will dismiss. Okay. So what we did, we configured a spinner component we configured, and for this spinner component, spinner is having an event called item selected event. So we configured a method we configured called on item selected. Specify the object of on item selected listener. Whenever you select a particular item, it's going to call what? On item selected method is going to call. So here we are displaying what? A toast message you are displaying. First parameter is a context. Which item the user is selected, I want to get that item I want to get. So spinner object dot get selected item dot toString, and the duration dot finally show method we are calling. Okay. Next, same like autocomplete text review and autocomplete text view and the spinner component. The next component is nothing but list view component. What is the next component name? It's a list view component, meaning which is used to present the list of configured values. Autocomplete text view means based on the given character, it is going to present the list of values it is going to present. Based on the given character, only that particular words and it will show here. Spinner means nothing but it's a drop down menu. User has to select this drop down menu to get the list of values. List view component means nothing but directly it will show you the list of values. In your application, in the Android device, in n number of places, we can you can find this list view component. You can find in Android n number of places you can find this list view component. You can find. Okay, same like autocomplete text view and spinner component also. Even for list view component also, we'll configure the values in two ways. We'll configure the values by using XML. We'll configure the values, and by using Java, we'll configure the values. Even for list view component also, we'll configure the values in two ways. Same, either XML configuration or a Java configuration. The concept is same. In case of XML, use the entries attribute to set the values. In case of Java, use the set adapter method to set the values. Okay, the concept is same. Just for demonstration, we configure the values we configured in XML, right? Okay, I'm creating a list view component. I'm creating list view. Width is match parent, height is wrap content I specified. Let's configure the ID. LV1 is ID I configured, and use the entries attribute. Use at array, specify the array name. Continue. Okay. So this is another component. List view is a component. List view is another UI component. We create list view component we created, and we are presenting that XML configured values. We are presenting to the list view component. Okay. Let's run the application. So this is a list view component. So here it's a spinner. First thing is a spinner here. Then after that it's a list view. This Australia, Afghanistan, Ireland. These are the XML configured values, and directly we are setting the values we are setting to the list view component. Directly we are setting the values. Okay. This is about the list view component. But here for presenting the values up to now we are presenting the static data we are presenting. It's not a dynamic. Even though XML configuration or Java configuration, directly we are configuring the values we are configuring, and we are presenting the values we are presenting. Okay. Now tomorrow class, in our next class, we'll see how to present the dynamic data, not the static data. We'll see how to present what? The dynamic data. Okay. The next class we see that one because it will take some time. So we'll see how to present the dynamic data, and we'll move into the second type of adapter, that is custom adapter. Okay. So this one we'll discuss in the next class. Any queries in today's session? Let me know if you have any queries.